My name is Michael Coates. I'm a former firefighter, but I'm also a former soldier. And it's the stories from the individuals within this military community that I'm desperate to document. Our next guest was there at the very start of the Royal Foundation. She helped set up the Endeavour Fund, Invictus, and was pivotal in the creation of Heads Together. In this episode, we talk about Shout, a 24/7 crisis text line that is free, confidential, and transforming the way we reach out. A Shout special. Victoria Hornby. This is Declassified. How did you first get involved with the Royal Foundation?
It was 2011, and I was working for the Sainsbury Family Charitable Trust, so working with all kinds of different ages and stages of members of the Sainsbury family to help them with their charitable giving. And I was asked by the chief exec of the Royal Foundation if I would help to create a charity gift list for the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge for their wedding.
And that's where the job offer came from there, was it?
Yeah, so I did that as a secondment. So I did a couple of days a week, and the Royal Foundation was very new, so it didn't really have very many people in it. And this turned out to be quite a big job. And so I did that on secondment from Sainsbury's into the Sainsbury Family Trust into the Royal Foundation. And that all went okay. And then about 6 months later, I joined full time.
Yeah. And what was the purpose? Why did the Royal Foundation initially get set up?
I think it was to create a vehicle or a way for initially Prince William and Prince Harry to get involved in topics that they were really passionate about without necessarily having to choose one charity. So typically royal patronage, you might pick one organisation in, homelessness or military or whatever, which is great. But sometimes you want to have an opportunity to talk to lots of different organisations and bring them together around a particular topic or theme. And so the Royal Foundation was really there to try and bring lots of organisations, lots of other individuals in to help deal with or tackle a particular issue.
And with the kind of formation of it, you said it was small to start off with. Was it the kind of place where everyone knew everybody? Was you seeing the kind of princes on a regular basis? How was the whole setup?
So initially the Royal Foundation, and there were only, I think, 4 of us when I started, had an office inside the household. So inside the household office for Prince William and Prince Harry, and then obviously the Duke and Duchess and Prince Harry, which was quite a small office in St James's, which then moved to Kensington Palace. And at that point, we moved the foundation out of the sort of royal household and into our own kind of entity. But yeah, initially it was, there were only 4 of us, and we were right next door to their household offices.
And what was the projects then? So what was the themes or the kind of the giving, I suppose, initially? What was it all about? Was it just generic? Was it just open season, or did they have a vision of what they wanted to achieve from it?
Yeah, they had a really clear idea. I think because both of them were still serving at the time, they wanted to do something quite focused. They didn't want to just be generic. So they chose 3 topics initially. One was conservation, one was disadvantaged young people, and then the third was military families and veterans.
Let's go to that first then. 2012 Endeavour Fund, was that the first military project? And
really the first sort of formed programme of the Royal Foundation really was the Endeavour Fund. And the Endeavour Fund really was inspired by 2 things. One was the Walking with the Wounded walk to the North Pole, which obviously Prince Harry was very involved in. And the second was the Row to Recovery, so the row across the Atlantic. And I think at that point people really recognised that there was a huge opportunity to bring the wounded, injured and sick community back into that sort of very strong team environment and working together to achieve a particular goal that had a real potential for helping people through the recovery. And there were lots of ideas floating around, and we received a lot of them at the Royal Foundation for new endeavours that were happening. People wanted to do all kinds of things. And we wanted to be able to support these endeavours, absolutely, and to support sport and adventure as part of recovery, because that seemed to really have a place. But equally, to do that in a way that where there was some coordination and some way of making sure that actually the expeditions or the initiatives were safe, so that people could go and do their adventure or their endeavours safely.
So without the risk of further injury or without the risk of being re-injured because of the endeavour?
Yes.
So it was never about the thing, like we've spoken about this before. It was not about the actual row or the climb.
No. And it wasn't about extreme either. So it wasn't that we only wanted to fund things that were, climbing Everest or, doing something that was really extreme or in fact really dangerous. For some people that was great, that was part of what they wanted as in their recovery. But we funded an amazing walk in Wales, which was not extreme by any stretch of the imagination, but was brilliant for engaging local communities. These guys walked the coastal route of all of Wales over a series of months, and people from local villages walked with them. And that was amazing in its own way. So we were totally agnostic as to what the sporting activity or the adventure or the expedition was. It had to be well thought through. It had to be financially viable. Last thing you want to do is take people halfway. So we needed to make sure that people had enough money to get all the way through, and that there was the right support built in. So for some people, going through a big expedition as part of their recovery might be amazing, but halfway through you might need some support. So we wanted to make sure that there was enough support around for these things to all be successful.
So administration, security, the kind of ability to link people together, to create those mini partnerships as well. So if someone came in and said, I want to go and climb the highest peak in the Alps, I've got these injuries that are going to kind of I need to adapt a little bit. You then help with the admin. You then help with getting the right people to kind of supply them with equipment. Is that how it works?
Or making sure that there was enough money to have the right equipment, that they had all the right training in place, that you weren't just having a go at Mont Blanc, by yourself without having had any climbing experience. And usually as a team, usually bringing other people alongside you. Some of the climbing expeditions that we funded were really amazing in terms of teaching people skills that they could then go on and use afterwards. Having some people that were brand new to climbing being supported and buddied by people that were amazing climbers. A lot of it was about that, was about being part of a team.
This is a leading question because I do know the answer, but so we set the project up as the Endeavour Fund, and then is it then a case, because I think you referred to it earlier on, but this was the first time you'd almost gone professional with the project, and to set the blueprint up, was it then a case of building the Endeavour Fund team, or did it all then go back to the Royal Foundation and it was one kind of group that would just kind of playing at it, I suppose? Or was it about building that infrastructure around?
Yes, it was very much about building the Endeavour Fund into something that was professional, that had a kind of long-term presence to it, that it wasn't, just something for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. So we originally set out to make sure that we had enough money to fund it for 3 years, that we could support a whole range of different expeditions or adventures or sporting activities. So we built a team within the Royal Foundation to run the Endeavour Fund. And we also put a board around the Endeavour Fund. So we had, I guess, 6 or 7 board members of the Endeavour Fund who helped us make the decisions around which things we were going to fund.
Was that then a separate charity?
It wasn't a separate charity, but it was a separate fund within the Royal Foundation, and it had its own identity as the Endeavour Fund. So people didn't need to know about the Royal Foundation necessarily to hear about the Endeavour Fund. And the Endeavour Fund operated very much as its own brand in the military community. And we really wanted it to have that. We wanted it to be the kind of gold standard for recovery.
I mean, 2012 was pretty hot for injury, still coming back in, and especially that kind of transition piece when the guys were getting better. 2014, the first Invictus.
Yeah.
Does this sit under the Royal Foundation or sit under Endeavour? How does it work? How was it created?
Yeah, so Invictus was slightly different from Endeavour. So Invictus, the aim with Invictus was always big. So Prince Harry's aim with Invictus was, multiple nations, Olympic Park, it's a big bang. And so Invictus from the very early stages was going to be big, and it was going to be expensive, bluntly. So Invictus was set up as a separate entity outside of the Royal Foundation, but very much linked to it. So the Royal Foundation funded all of the initial feasibility for the Invictus Games. We seconded staff into the Invictus Games. They kind of had an office next door to ours, and were very involved in helping to raise money and support the games. But Invictus was its own separate entity, partly because it was going to enter into a huge number of commercial contracts and all that sort of stuff, which was kind of easier to do outside. And I think absolutely the right choice for Invictus. I mean, it would have been, for example, the incredible support they've had from Jaguar Land Rover as sponsors over the years. That would have been much more difficult to negotiate within the Royal Foundation. So it made sense to set Invictus up as a separate entity.
Because it needed to remain neutral, the Royal Foundation.
Yeah, and also because financially and in terms of the commercial contracts, renting out the Olympic Park, these these are all kind of big things, and the Royal Foundation was still quite small. And also the Royal Foundation it's a charitable foundation. It's not a delivery entity. We didn't know we didn't know if it would be a success, to be honest, but which, looking back on it, is a bit weird. I think, it was so amazing. Even I remember watching the first race at Lee Valley and just thinking, this is extraordinary. And from that moment, I think people started thinking about what's the long-term future for Invictus. But at the very beginning, no one knew if anyone would come. No one knew if people would buy tickets. No one knew, no one really knew whether it would catch imagination in the way that it did. So Invictus now is very different from what Invictus was when it was a kind of idea.
Well, look, there was almost a perfect storm. The right people, the right time, the right demographic, all coming together to achieve one thing, and that was to almost get better.
Yeah.
You had these just amazing characters. Many of them have been on this podcast.
Yeah.
And such a pure project, if there ever was one. It's such an amazing thing. The Invictus Foundation then was born, almost moved aside and let to kind of free roll and free run down.
Yeah.
How many in the Royal Foundation at this point? How many programs are you kind of overseeing?
So
2014,
14, 15. I guess we were probably had about 7 or 8 different programs across those 3 different areas.
Conservation, children,
young people,
and military.
Yeah.
Heads together.
Yeah.
You had a big. You were part of setting that up. That was 2016.
Yeah.
Talk me through why that happened, because it is fascinating.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. So I think initially with the Royal Foundation, all 3 at the time it was 3. So all 3 of the patrons, if you like, so the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and Prince Harry, all had their own areas of interest. And the foundation delivered projects, whether that was around addiction or palliative care for children or knife crime. We were doing a whole range of projects which were related to one of the 3 of them. And probably in about 2015, there was a sense that actually there might be something the 3 of them could all achieve together if there was one common aim. And it became very clear, I think, to them very early on that the thing that linked most of their projects was mental health. That people's recovery, whether that's homelessness or addiction or an injury, that mental health has an important part to play for everyone. And that often if people are finding it really difficult to move on, that's often because of something that they are feeling, something quite profound about how they're feeling, often about themselves. And we wanted to do something to tackle the real stigma around mental health, that having a mental health problem, struggling with your mental health, is a weakness or a failure. And that was really where Heads Together came from, was to try and, for the 3 of them very much and very personally motivated to to get people to think differently about mental health.
And I suppose, especially with the military side of things, and we use it in this podcast, but that again, that demographic of individuals that has the kind of, who can stand up really and serve again and talk about things like mental health, but in a positive way as well. We have to change that, and we are certainly doing it. But that's now, back then, 2016, things were different and things have changed a lot in these last kind of 3 years. Was that then its own project, or was that moved aside? Was it still under Royal Foundation?
Yeah, so Heads Together ended up being, I mean, there were lots of different things, obviously, that we could have done around mental health, but we had this opportunity of the London Marathon in 2017. And every year the London Marathon has a charity of the year. And so we had the opportunity to use the year running up, so from May 2016 to May 2017, really to run a kind of year-long campaign around mental health and culminate with hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people running for Heads Together in the London Marathon, and to make it the mental health marathon. And that was really exciting because it was the first time that the marathon charity had been more of a cause than an individual charity. And so we worked with 8 different charities to deliver Heads Together, and we wanted almost to make sure that we covered as many bases as possible. So we had a charity called Best Beginnings, which was about prenatal and up to kind of age 3, really looking at maternal mental health, some of the things that that happen for people when they have a baby, when they've got children early in their early years, right up to through the primary school years, teenage years, focusing on men, focusing on military. We really wanted to show that mental health affects people at all stages of their life, and people need support for different reasons at different stages. And so we had a range of different charities as part of the Heads Together campaign, and we wanted to tell lots of stories about mental health to sort of break down the stigma, and we wanted to get people talking about their mental health, just having a conversation. So we released a whole bunch of films called OK to Say, which were celebrities, not celebrities, but people just talking about how things had changed for them when they'd had that first conversation. And that was really what it was about, that, people had been holding back, trying to manage all of these feelings and thoughts and challenges by themselves, and that by having that one conversation to say, actually, I'm not okay, that had been the beginning of their recovery.
Everything we've mentioned so far, Endeavour, Invictus, Heads Together was the one for me where it felt like it was a movement. It was like a wave coming. It changed a lot. It almost instantly became, it almost instantly became the kind of go-to mental health charity. Not because there was floods of people going there, but because the messaging that was coming out was positive and different. Is there ever been a struggle in these early, well, not even early years now, we're kind of 5 years in, but within that first 5 years where messaging, because messaging is so key, and I've said it before, but staying neutral, staying about the kind of the end user and not about an ego. Was there ever a struggle with that?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I think the difficulty was there's lots that you could say about mental health. So what was the message going to be? And it could have been a load of different messages. I think there was definitely an issue about that. There was also an issue about it being positive. Saying something positive about mental health rather than focusing on the negatives. And a lot of people can't help but explain mental health by using negative examples or terms. I always said the language of mental health is often the language of failure. It's can't cope, can't manage, can't, it's all very can't. And we wanted it to be very positive without making it trivial. And that's quite a difficult balance sometimes, to make something feel important and real and, for some people, just phenomenally painful, but talk about it in a positive way.
Was that marathon then? Was that the catalyst, and was it a success after?
Yeah, so I think the year, running up to it, and particularly the last few months around the marathon itself, and the couple of weeks around the marathon were phenomenal in terms of just it was everywhere. And I think we would always say that, you know, we were pushing on an open door, that the charities we were working with, plus, you know, loads of other charities, had already done an amazing job of kind of paving the way and pathfinding, if you like, in terms of there being a group of organisations, lots of discussions already out there, people openly talking about their mental health, that there was places for people to go. So once you kind of open the door, there was actually, you know, whether it's Stephen Fry talking about his mental health, or, you know, much younger people talking about their mental health, there were places you could go and you could find someone relatively easily, either online or in the newspapers or wherever it might be. You could find someone who you could identify with, who was talking openly and positively about mental health.
It's again, things have just changed so much, and I genuinely believe that Heads Together had a huge part and a huge role to play in that. And it's almost created role models as well. Like me as a dad, like I've sat and talked to my children, and we've read books, and even at a young age now they're talking about things, and it's setting that example. With regards to kind of military mental health, Contact was then created from Heads Together.
Yeah, so we wanted to have a strong military mental health presence, if you like, in Heads Together. And rather than sort of pick one organisation, there were a group of military mental health charities that were all doing amazing work with helping people through both promoting mental fitness, which I think was very much a kind of term that resonated with the community, and also recovery from psychological injury. And so Contact was collaboration, if you like, of a number of charities in the military field, and it was Contact's job, I suppose, to get those kind of Heads Together messages out to the military community, and also feed back into us at Heads Together what are the messages that we really want to feed into the military community.
Is it the project itself? Was it about communicating?
Yeah, and it was also about helping people find the right place to get help. So if you look on the Contact website, or, you know, it gives you a range of different options. You know, not every charity or mental health service provider is for you, so it gives you a choice. If you're looking for support for your mental health, the Contact charities between them give a lot of advice about, you know, where's the best place to go and get help, lots of different options, different ways of accessing help.
You know, like, so obviously like Endeavour, there's a team working, there's a lot of funds coming in and then out to get the initiatives going. With Contact, was there a team specifically for
yeah,
that?
there's a coordinator for Contact, and regular meetings, and there's a sort of board of Contact which meets very regularly and looks at everything from, I guess, you know, sort of policy and practice through to what's the evidence telling us, where do we need to make more effort, where are we doing okay, and different charities taking the lead on some of that because that's where their expertise lies. But yeah, it's a very, very sort of active network. The Ministry of Defence is involved. It's a very proactive, I guess, network of people.
And it's still orchestrated by the Royal Foundation, or Heads Together?
Yeah, so there is still very much engagement from the Royal Foundation in Contact. I think a lot of the organisations that are involved in Contact have been driving it forward in the same way that the Royal Foundation has. So I wouldn't say necessarily that it belongs to the Royal Foundation, but and I have to say I'm a little out of date on this, but it's definitely it's a sort of collaboration that's being driven forward by a number of organisations in the military field.
And how would someone use Contact on the website?
Yeah.
So initially, before we go on to what we're going to talk about, but at its initial stages, it was a website where you could go on and then you could find what you wanted.
Yeah,
from there. And
you could put in, you could find out more information about the different organisations that could help you.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So this supports the Veterans Gateway as well.
Yeah. So and the Veterans Gateway and Contact work very closely together.
Brilliant. That's 2016, kind of then going into 2017. Why did you leave
So
you kind of left and you didn't leave. It's kind of
it's a good question, isn't it? Yeah. So whilst we were running the campaign, and there was a brilliant team that ran the Heads Together campaign, and that was very much a kind of communications campaign. Within the foundation, we were doing quite a lot of work to think about what came next. So after the marathon in 2017, and hopefully this big sort of communications shift, people felt really differently about their mental health. We also knew that we needed to do something as well beyond the campaign. So we looked at a whole range of different areas where really the strength of the Royal Foundation was bringing people together to think about solving a problem. So, we always thought about it as bits of different organisations holding a different piece of the jigsaw. And actually, if you could get everyone to put their pieces on the table at the same time, you'd get a much bigger whole, if you like, more coherent picture. And in some areas that worked brilliantly. So off the back of Heads Together, the Royal Foundation worked with a number of charities to create something called the Mentally Healthy Schools website, which is an amazing, super practical guide for head teachers of primary schools. If you want to create a more mentally healthy school and more mentally healthy environment in a primary school, this is where you go to get your information, and it's super practical, and lots of organisations are involved in it, and it has lots of information and guidance and advice. So we looked at a bunch of next steps, and the one area that we felt there was huge potential but not an obvious next step was in digital technology. There's a lot of worry about digital, and people saying, actually the online world really contributes to poor mental health, and so were we really right to be looking at digital? The reality is that's where people are, and increasingly people start looking for help online, so they start their journey of looking for support for their mental health online. Sometimes that's okay, sometimes it's not okay. Sometimes you end up in a very dark place, possibly a darker place than you were in. And there's no point in anyone pretending that, that's not going to keep happening. So we wanted to look at what were the options and what were the opportunities for digital technology to support people's mental health. And so we started looking around the world to see were there any examples where actually, digital was having a real impact on mental health. And we came across an organisation in the US, much smaller then than it is now, called Crisis Text Line, which is doing what it says on the tin. It's a text-based crisis service enabled by a very smart bit of technology. And just so happened that at the time we were looking at Crisis Text Line, they were thinking about how they internationalise their tech. And so we started to talk to Crisis Text Line. We started to look at whether we could integrate a text-based crisis service in the UK. And I guess there are some real advantages to digital and to a sort of instant messaging type text service, which are essentially that it's silent, so people don't have to worry about being overheard. People can text anytime from anywhere. We have kids now texting us from school. We have people texting us in the middle of the night at home. They don't have to worry about waking someone up. That gives people a lot of confidence. And also, I think for people that are really distressed, sometimes getting the words out is really hard, and writing them is easier.
So you mentioned who. So you left the Royal Foundation, and then £2 million was invested from them into mental health innovations.
Yes.
And that's where this all comes from.
Yeah. So we decided that the best thing to do would be to set up an entity to create and to build Crisis Text Line here in the UK as a or a similar service. And we also decided that a bit like Invictus, it was better if that was a different organisation, not within the Royal Foundation, partly because the only way you could run the service was by having thousands of volunteers, a very large clinical workforce, a big digital and tech team, and it just didn't make sense to try and build that into the Royal Foundation for exactly the same reason as Invictus was separate. We needed to create a separate organisation that wouldn't totally unbalance the Royal Foundation by, going out and, building a team of 25 or 50 or whatever it might be. And also, as we built the service here, we wanted to be able to keep it pretty quiet and under wraps whilst we built it, because we didn't want to be overwhelmed by demand. So, setting up a crisis service within the Royal Foundation may not have been the best way of keeping it under wraps.
Yeah.
And so we decided that it was better to be outside of the foundation. And at the time, I guess for me personally, I'd been at the foundation by that point for 7 years, and I felt like it was a good time for me to move on. And I was really excited by the potential for not just the crisis service, but the extraordinary thing that the crisis service delivers alongside, instant help and support to people is extraordinary data. And we really felt there was such potential in really understanding what people were telling us about their mental health. And because it's all written down, most of our conversations are over an hour long. It gives us just a huge amount to work from.
Just before we move to Shout properly, do you license the technology from the US, or have you developed it yourself?
No, so we license the platform from Crisis Text Line in the US. I must say, completely free. So it's
right.
It's a very much a kind of global charitable endeavour. So they provide the technology for us, and they also provided the training package, which we've modified for the UK. It's a bit less cheerleady in the UK than it is in the US. But yeah, so we essentially had a kind of kit, basically, and also the extraordinary support of an organisation which 5 years earlier had been on the same journey that we were on. Yeah, so that's been incredible.
I mean, just a huge collaboration. I thought you were going to say, it cost us £1 million a year to license. That's unbelievable. Because there's a tried and tested method, it seems. You was at the forefront of that from 2011. Mental Health Innovations gets set up. The first kind of flagship programme to come off that is Shout, which was essentially what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
That was launched in May 2018, very, very quietly to get that testing done.
Yeah.
What's happened then between May 2018 and May 2019?
So between May 2018 and 19, we wanted to be able to build the service quite quietly. And I guess there were 3 critical bits in that. One was recruiting enough volunteers. So the service is entirely based on volunteers who are supported by our clinical team. So we knew we needed probably between 500 and 700 trained volunteers to be able to sort of say, hey, this service exists. Text us if you need us. So we needed time to recruit those volunteers, get them on the platform, get them comfortable with the service. Similarly, we went out and hired about 20 clinicians, so mostly psychologists, very experienced mental health professionals, to supervise the platform. But again, a year to kind of give them a chance to, really bed in their experience of working on a digital platform rather than working face to face. And then we needed to make sure that we had the tech completely up and running and scaled so that, no matter how many people text us in any one day, nothing breaks. It's based on a short code. So the number's 85258. People, we can't sort of shut the door on that. We can't sort of say we're full. We can't, people just keep texting the number. And we can't stop people, and we can't stop anyone texting the number. So we knew we needed to have that sort of capacity that if someone posted something on Facebook about 85258, that we'd have enough people, enough clinicians, and enough capacity from a tech perspective to respond to all of those messages. And we slightly dreaded it happening, but interestingly, so it did happen last Christmas.
Oh, really?
Which was so we were still very much under the radar. We didn't have Shout out there as a name. We weren't publicising the number. And I really remember I was walking down the road with my daughter on Christmas Eve morning, and I got a text through from one of our clinical supervisors saying, hey, there's something on Facebook about us. And a YouTuber on Facebook had just put out a message saying, hey, if you're feeling a little, down or, in need of support over Christmas, really nice people at 85258, they'll support you. We had 800 messages from pretty much that time through to the next morning. So most of us spent Christmas Eve into Christmas morning on the platform, kind of, and we'd sort of said to our volunteers, hey, don't worry too much about Christmas. And there we were kind of sending out, text messages saying, well, it's really busy, get on the platform. And it was amazing. I mean, it was incredible. And I think that in at the time it was quite hard work, but actually it gave us real confidence for saying, actually, we can handle this, and we can do a good job, and we can be there for people. And we had, such a wide age range. I mean, as far as we know, our kind of youngest texter is 8, and our oldest is somewhere in their 60s or 70s. So actually, it kind of gave us the confidence that it does work for everybody. Just this really simple service where you text us in a lot of distress for whatever reason it might be, and we just say, we're here.
A couple of questions then. The first one, what does, let's just say shout the crisis text line.
Yeah.
What is there do you not deal with things? Can a lad in his room who's going to come out to his parents if he's gay, or can we address issues like suicide or depression or what this plethora of issues? Is there anything that this limits?
No. So we will support anyone for any reason. I mean, I remember really early on I had a text from a guy who said, I'm hitting my girlfriend and I want to stop. And actually, what's really good about the training and the whole ethos of the service is that our first response, and we're trained to do this, and it's what we ought to do, is to say, it's amazing that you have asked for help. And you don't have to say, I condone what you're doing or anything else, but it is amazing that he'd asked for help. And it's good that he asked for help, and we wanted to make sure that he got that help, not just for himself, but obviously for his partner and everybody else. So I think we're totally agnostic. We get younger kids texting us saying, Lizzie at school was mean to me today. And it may seem really trivial, but actually what's amazing, particularly for the younger kids that text us, is we want everybody to have a really good experience of reaching out for help. Because that's what is going to build your resilience longer term. We often learn not to reach out for help because we don't have a good experience of it. And someone says, oh, you'll be fine, or pull your socks up, or whatever it might be. And actually, we want people to get the response they should get for reaching out for help, whether it's however old they are, whatever the issue is, that people should give the response, which was, it took a lot of courage for you to reach out for help today, and I'm here to support you.
So it's this kind of, again, this snowball effect where, especially as a young age, if you can reach out and you can talk about things, good and bad actually, not just the negative, we can speak about happy things in our life. But if you feel safe and secure, then you're more likely to kind of open up. With regards to kind of data, and data is so important with this service, not kind of harvesting your personal details as such, but does it highlight certain areas or trends? You mentioned Christmas, for example. And over this last kind of year and a bit, are we seeing trends in?
Yeah.
So data and then trends.
Yeah. So data-wise, and I think it should just be really clear that we don't collect any personal data about our texters, and all of our data, if you like, that we analyse is completely anonymised. We only ever ask for people's first names, and they don't have to give it for us. That's just makes the conversation easier. But it's totally anonymous. It's completely confidential service. It's free and it's totally off bill, so it would never show up on your phone bill. So that's the sort of data bit of it. The in terms of trends and what we're seeing, we've exchanged over 5 million messages now, and about 80% of our texters are under 25.
How many?
80%.
80?
80% of our texters are under 25. And about just under 40% of people that text us say that they have had suicidal thoughts or suicidal intentions, which is high. And then around the sort of 30% mark, again, we have isolation, depression, anxiety and loneliness, and relationships. They are the kind of biggest.
Human suffering.
Yeah, exactly. About 20% of our texters tell us that they self-harm or that they've thought of self-harming or they have in the past. And then actually the more granular issues, I guess, if you like, so domestic violence or addictions, they tend to be smaller percentages, but then they're often linked in to something around relationships or anxiety, depression. So we do see need. I mean, unquestionably, we see a lot of people that need a lot of help. But the nice thing, I guess, for us is also that the majority of people text us once. And hopefully that experience of texting once and then either just getting the support you need. I mean, our sense is that regardless of what the issue is, I think people feel two things. One is that, and it really surprised me, both running the service, but I volunteer as well on the platform, is how the vast majority of our texters feel that they don't deserve any help. Which was really surprising. I hadn't really expected that, but people, sometimes they feel like they've burnt some bridges or they've made some mistakes, and because they've made some mistakes, they're not really worthy of any help, and there are other people who are good people who deserve the help and support. And that's a big barrier to people reaching out for help and support.
It's like a guilt, isn't it, as well?
Totally. So if you don't feel like you're deserving of any help, you're very unlikely to reach out for it.
Or you deserve what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's this thing that you have created, so you've got to live with it instead of being able to offload and kind of work through it.
Yeah. So there's that which is really, I guess, striking. And the other thing we found is that again, I think most of our texters may be different with this kind of slightly younger end, but most of our texters kind of know what they need to do next. They just don't really have the confidence to do it. So for some people, it's, talking to a partner or a GP or a friend. And often we'll sort of say to people, they'll say, I don't think I could talk to my mate or my partner. And you say, if they were in a difficult situation, would you want them to tell you how they were feeling? And people go, yeah, of course I would. I would really want to help them. And we just try and kind of edge people towards that sense that actually people do want to help.
Yeah.
And they are deserving of help. And actually, if they could just have that confidence. So the aim of the service is to get people to a point of calmness so that they can make a plan. And that plan might be, most of our texters text us in the night. So, they're not going to call their GP right now because it's midnight or whatever time it is. So the plan might be, listen to some music, have a bath, chill out. And in the morning, I'm going to call my GP. And then we might say, what do you think you might tell them? And let's talk about the 3 things you want to tell your GP. And then if you get into your GP surgery and you can't actually get the words out, they're there on your phone. Because we've written them down together.
They create the plan, though, don't
Yeah.
they? They create the plan. It's almost you're giving them permission to give permission, if that makes sense. Like you're just coaxing their, again, permission out.
Yeah.
To go and do something and create an action.
Yeah.
And that's again, that fascinates me. That ability to listen, to do something, and then create an action off the back of something so simple like a text. With regards to kind of trends, I know we touched on it then, you don't need to go into specifics, but do we see, like, on a Wednesday evening in Stoke that more people ring up because of alcohol abuse? Like, do we see it like that kind of micro level?
Yeah, so we don't often know where people are.
Okay.
So we couldn't say that they were in Stoke, but we can tell you that Sunday and Monday nights probably the roughest for people. I saw something in an article the other day about something which is now called the Sunday scares.
Right.
People getting to Sunday night thinking, I just don't know that I can do another week, whether it's at school or at work or whatever, that there's something about Sunday night. And we definitely see a lot of traffic on a Sunday night. And, people have had a nice weekend or they've managed to make it through the weekend and then, there they are, Sunday night, I've got to go back to school, or I've got to go to work, and I've got to go and face those demons again. And we get a bit of that on Monday because, maybe you've made it through Monday, but, it feels like there's an awful lot of the week still to get through. So we're busier at the beginning of the week, less busy at the end of the week, busier when it's rubbish weather, less busy when it's sunny outside. I mean, I think, nothing earth-shattering, but also other really interesting, I guess, things that we, trends that we see. So, for example, we did a lot of promoting of the service around exam time. So GCSE A-level time. And what we found around the exams themselves and then around the results. And what we found is that people tend to be really anxious about those things before they happen. So we had quite high levels of people talking to us about exams in the run-up to exams. When the exams actually started, the level of anxiety went down. Because you're in it, it's happening. We had a big kind of spike in activity immediately before A-level and GCSE results, but it was before. So it wasn't people texting us saying, I've tanked my A-levels or I've tanked my GCSEs. It was people saying, I'm worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. And that was really interesting to us. And actually, we'd love to be able to, get more of that kind of data and then feed it back to schools and say, if you're going to build support around people, do it right before.
Yeah.
Because often I guess and I'm sure loads of schools do this absolutely brilliantly, but it is that sort of, it's a numbers game. So we don't, we can tell you that, we can show it to you on a graph, 10% more, 15% more, 20% more text us in these times. So we hope that that information will be useful to people.
So let's go to the military now.
Yeah.
So the military, you've just launched the kind of campaign for military veterans, those that are serving, spouses, military children, in partnership with Contact. So it's almost like we've gone back to 2016.
Yeah.
How are we going to be? Is it the? Do we use it the same? Is the phone line the same?
Yeah, the number's the same, everything's the same. So what we'd really encourage people to do is text Contact to 85258. And so you don't have to text Contact, but the benefit is if you text Contact to 85258, that then we know that our volunteers and our clinical team know that that person is coming to us probably from a military background. And we provide a lot of additional information for our volunteers and for our clinical team about what the issues might be for military community that might be different from, civilian community, what the specific charities and organisations that might be able to help them would be. So sometimes we give people signposts or referrals onto other organisations. So texting Contact gives our volunteer and clinical team just a bit of additional knowledge and understanding that is somebody who's likely to come to us from a military background, and that there are some issues which are much more prevalent or likely to be more distressing for that community than for another community.
And just off this as well, emergency services. Do you work with any kind of?
We do. So we also have a partnership with the emergency services. So if you text Blue Light to 85258, then again, we're there for everyone, but we then know that person is texting us from first responder community, and we can provide more sort of tailored support, if you like.
Yeah, it's until just this last minute, I get it much clearer why you do Contact. What was the Blue Light?
Blue Light.
Was it just blue?
Blue Light to 85258, Contact to 85258. And we do the same. So we have a charity called Switchboard that we provide a service for. Text Switchboard to 85258, and that tends to be young people who are questioning or looking into their sexuality. And young people could text us, could text shout to 85258, but if they know about Switchboard and they have that sort of trusted relationship with Switchboard, then they can text us through Switchboard, and we'll then know, because it says Switchboard, that that's somebody who's likely got an history about their sexuality.
When will you pass on a conversation? So when... Yeah, you understand what I'm asking.
So by and large, the services is the aim is really to get people from that sense of crisis, being overwhelmed, to calm, and then from calm to plan. That's really the aim. Sometimes we don't think we can get someone to calm, and sometimes those people are at imminent risk of harm to themselves or to someone else. If we believe that's the case, we have a dedicated phone number to the emergency services, and we pass on whatever details we have about that texter, including their phone number, if we believe that person needs urgent assistance. It's then up to the emergency services and to the police whether or not they then take that forward. Locating someone through their phone number is a very intrusive thing to do, so we're very careful about how we do that. But our fundamental premise is that if you've texted us, you want some help or support.
And like you said, almost privacy or the risk of death or serious injury or someone else's serious injury, it kind of out-trumps
privacy.
Privacy,
yeah,
and you pass that. You do pass that on,
and we do stay with people. So we're super honest with people. We'll sort of say, look, our safety is your safety is our primary concern here, and we don't believe that we're going to be able to to work with you to stay safe. We always ask people to call themselves. So we say, would you call 999? If they say no, then we say, would you tell us where you are, and we'll call 999 for you. And if that's still a no, then we'll say, and we're really honest and say, of course we are, to say we're going to, we think you need help, and, we're going to do our best to get some help to you. Where do you
recruit your volunteers from?
So we recruit from everywhere. I mean, it's been really interesting that when we did our public launch in May of this year, that was led by the Duke of Cambridge, and he did a big sort of plea for saying, we want to make this service national, we need more people to volunteer. We had about 17,000 people apply, in a really short period of over the weekend, which was pretty amazing. And so we've got people from all walks of life. About 40% of our volunteers are under 25, which is really nice because that sort of matches a lot of our texters, and we think it's an amazing skill to have. But we also have texters, we have volunteers at the other end of the spectrum, so much older volunteers, and their life experience and calmness is also absolutely invaluable. So, yeah, we're very lucky. We've got, serving police officers, we've got a whole range of people volunteering for us, and it's a really nice community.
Mums, dads, can you work it round your family?
Absolutely. So you sign up for your shift, so you train online, and you're supported through your training by a coach, and then you sign up for your shifts a bit like you'd sign up for a gym class. So we don't say, could you sign up every Wednesday from 10 till midnight? You can work that out for yourself. Sometimes people might have planned to go out on a Thursday night, plans fall through, and they go, I'll just see if there's
a slot.
If there's a slot, and I'll log on, and that's so it's very flexible in that sense. And although it's virtual, so everybody's at home on a computer, all of our volunteers are on laptops, so at their kitchen table in their PJs with a cup of tea. Or not in their PJs, obviously, if it's the middle of the day, but, if it's nighttime. And so when you log on as a volunteer, you're allocated to one of our clinical team. The clinical team can see all of your conversations and support you through that conversation, message back and forth with your, clinical supervisor saying, I'm not quite sure where this conversation's going, can you give me some advice? So you're never on your own. But then you've also got all the other volunteers that are on. And that's always quite a fun kind of dynamic. So you'll have people, one night it'll be what would be your best ice cream for your shift, or what music do you listen to get you ready for a shift. It's quite a sort of
community. It's
quite a community, and so it sounds really bad to say that as a crisis service people are really sort of upbeat and positive and fun, but actually they are. And
that's what you want.
It's what you want. And also, I guess we try and get this across to people because part of that thing about not wanting to reach out for help is that people don't want to hear from you, or would be, judge you for reaching out for help. I mean, we've got now 1,500 people around the country on the platform wanting people to ask for their help.
1,500 people who can not only manage and maintain their good mental health, but they want to promote and they want to encourage others to do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.
And it's such a nice sort of reciprocal thing. We've got people that are in a moment where they feel like they need some help and support, and then we've got people that are loving being there for someone and being able to, you know, open your laptop, do it for a couple of hours, close your laptop in a very supported way, and feel really great about volunteering and making a contribution.
We've had people on this podcast who've been in crisis and they've reached out for help. We have people on this podcast, most of them, if not all, that are strong enough to be able to provide support for their friends, their families. I'm kind of, you know, reaching out to everyone that's listening and saying, look, if you're in crisis and you need some support, text contact to 85258. If you're or have the ability to volunteer, either now or in the future, go seek that out. The website,
giveusashout.org.
Thank you very much, Victoria, and we will leave it there.